I think the main con is independency, stringent investment decision, market-based analytics, due diligence, and so on and so forth. So if you really wanted to invest into the best companies, and do you want that the best founders in the market accept you on the cap table, you need to play the terms of the market. And that's not impossible, but it's very, very difficult for strategic players to comply with, no? For a great founder to be too early, to commit too early to someone or some direction in its journey, driving it for a company forward, involves a lot of risks, no? And you should think, or the best founders, they think twice if they wanted to do it. And I think that's the limitation.
Back in 2020, I wrote an article on LinkedIn pointing out what was supposed to look like an emerging trend. And the trend was the one of large corporations spanning out their corporate venture capital arms. Among the first to do this was SAP. Sapphire actually was born as a separate entity. Then we have around 2015 Deutsche Telekom that substantially spun out in a vehicle called Deutsche Telekom Capital Partner, DTCP, that has been lately also changed the name in Digital Transformation Capital Partner. Then you have been BBVA and Santander moving out the CVC vehicle into unit called Propel Ventures and Moro Capita. Then this has also been, this practice has been also followed in the insurance industry. AXA is a good example. And then has been the time of automotive with Volkswagen launching a CVC with a totally different name, a separate entities called Leitmotiv. And then has been also the move of Intel of spanning out and then changing its mind, it's Intel Capital. And then again, most recently also has been some other situation. One of the first to do this has been E.ON, and specifically E.ON, if I can remember, back in 2020 made a similar move and made such a move spanning out what it was, their venture capital investments into future energy ventures. There has been a person, a man behind the helm of this transformation. This person is Jan Lozek, that was the founder of Future Energy Venture, and today is still the CEO and managing partner. So you are the man, Jan. Hi, Jan. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Alberto. Nice to see you again. How are Olympics going?
It's good. So, Jan, I think this is has become more than just an emerging trend. This has become probably one of the main standard way of doing corporate venture capital. I think is one of the mainstream activities. And see, you have been one of the first to do it. And beyond doing this transformation, probably go back to 2020 and describe what was the mindset behind that move at those time. Maybe also one another interesting evolution is what it happened in November last year when you raised your second fund. Substantially, it was not just a move; it's a move that actually proven to be successful. Because again, I always say that in the venture capital industry, if you are good, the only way to see it, since performance are not so well known outside of the secret rooms of each investment funds. The only way to understand if a venture capital is good or not, if it's able to raise more funds after the first one and then after the second one. Since you did it, means that what you did in the first round was probably successful. And so this is, to me, is a sign that you did something right. And the model in a certain way has been accepted and actually is evolving even broadly and more far from what it was the original anchor investor that was E.ON. Can you drive us back behind the scene and tell us what has been the reason back in 2020 to make such a move, and then telling us also has been the evolution?
Thanks again, Alberto, for inviting me and then discussing about this exciting journey. Being one of the most influential corporate investors into the energy transition and moving to become one of the most decent energy tech institutional investors in the market here in Europe, and I'm quite grateful about having this opportunity and driving this wave into the future, because energy tech was in 2020 and is today, I think, in the mouth of everyone, and investors are really acknowledging the growth and the importance of this investment asset class today and also in 2020. But your question was a bit why, or what was your discussion in 2020 or 2019 when you started to carve out and then bring the team into the market and raising further funds? What was the main reason? And I think it was manifold, and it's always about momentum if you talk about big deals, And then the very end, it's just a large transaction. I think one topic which was really obvious in 2020 was that this new rising asset class in the institutional investment market, climate technology, energy technology, so investments into the electrification of transportation, electrification of buildings, of industry, into the energy system. It was clear that it will become one of the largest and most important asset classes over time in the next future. And we as the team, being in the market since 2016 with our first investment portfolio or fund on behalf of RWE and then E.ON, we really understood if you wanted to be part of that journey, you need to be an institutional investor. And that was quite clear to us in that time, or at least it was our hypothesis in 2019, 2020. That is why we pushed forward in discussing that. And there was a desire and the aim to be influential for the next decades or so, and being really on the forefront of driving this energy tech investment revolution, which helps to, as simply as that, it helps to sustain our planet for our kids, and that's lifetime opportunity for everyone to be part of that. Let's say it like this. There was huge of passion and a lot of rationality and a lot of experience, and that led to this commitment of the team. We need to go into the market if we wanted to be successful, and that should be also for E.ON the best move to do. So I think that's my side. Let's say it like this. And then on the other side, at that time we started in RWE, and then we had been part of E.ON, and that was the time when this huge, I would say, portfolio exchange between RWE and E.ON happened. E.ON was giving up renewable assets, RWE was taking it over, RWE was giving up energy, so the distribution and the customer business, and E.ON was taking everything over. So there was a kind of, let's say, clearance at least in the European energy market, especially in Germany. And usually in this type of situations in the boardrooms, you discuss a little bit what will be the strategy of the new company, what would be the right asset portfolio, what to do here and there. And I think in this momentum we used to implement this discussion, how to do venture capital in future and what would be the right move for E.ON going forward. And we found an agreement to move forward in a way that future energy ventures will raise next funds in the market. The team will go out and E.ON will be a customer, so to say, of technology which we invest into. And they will be a sponsor of the next fund two, and will support that journey. And I think as simply as that was I think the main drivers of that. Why we are here today is just the situation of the German utility market or European utility market, what happened in that time with regard to mergers and the development of this new asset class, climate technology, energy tech, however you name it, in that time. So when just going back, when we started to get to know each other, in 2016, 17, the asset class was 6 billion. It was corporate money which was invested into exciting venture stories, and now in the last few years, we had 40, 50, 60 billion per year investing into venture capital into the space. Last year, altogether, all investments, late stage, growth stage, infrastructure, venture capital, $2.4 trillion have been invested into the energy transition. So it's one of the largest asset class we see. And we're just riding this trend since it was beginning. And that was the ambition and the passion. And it's a grateful opportunity to do something really good for life, for living, no?
So let me pause you a second because you give us a lot of input. So let me try to wrap up what you just said to check if I got it right. So substantially, the trigger of the spanning out was also, let's say, the German industry utility, redefinition, energy, E.ON. Again, there was substantially a reorganization at corporate level that certainly raised the point of something that probably was not exactly at the center of the discussion, because there are other larger topics of what we do with all the portfolio of startup investment. If I can remember at those time, also Future Energy Ventures receive all the prior investments that has been done by the two companies. So substantially you consolidated all the prior investment, and substantially with that opportunity, you decided rather than putting on left or right, you put a new vehicle that is separate. And that was substantially the organizational house cleaning that has been done. And that's probably been the reason why it happened in 2020, not it happened in 2018, or maybe not happened in 2023. So that was the conjunctural situation that brought to the decision. But the vision behind that is the most interesting topic, at least to me, because that's explain why there's not just E.ON that did something like this, but many corporates are following this path. And I quote you say, you need to be an institutional investor to play a role in a big trend. And for institutional investor, I try to translate into common English is you need to be separate from a specific corporate brand. Because if you are too much linked into specific corporate brand, it's difficult. You can have probably a leading role because again, you are in a certain way, you are playing your side. And so that also explains why most of these new vehicle that has been spun out from the corporate environment, despite the corporate remains as an anchor investor, but not the only one in many cases, are also renamed themselves in a way that the link with the original corporate mothership has been removed. Again, most of the examples that I made before, the connection with the corporate has been deliberately removed. Again, if you talk to the guys at Siemens, Next 47 say, no, we are not Siemens. Okay, listen, is the only anchor investor, you are Siemens to me. No, we are separate. And so that has been probably also the reason. And let's try to discuss a bit better, what are the pros and cons to be a CVC? Because again, having a mothership behind visible and strong, on the one hand, from a startup perspective, is a potential asset. Because again, yes, you can have access to the corporate as a customer, but potentially you might have a certain way of potential foot into the door for a future exit. On the other hand, from a startup perspective, putting yourself in bed with a corporate in a visible way is probably something that might limit your strategic field of exit opportunities. In a certain way, might condition your future path. So how do you play this double agent role in a certain way? Because you are still linked to E.ON, but still you are independent. So how you play that role? And putting yourself in the shoes of your colleagues that have still traditional CVC venture capital arm, what are the pros and cons?
Yeah, good question. Happy to discuss. I think the main pro being part of large corporate is just the endless access to assets, no, isn't it? So why was RWE or E.ON investing hugely in the 2000s, beginning 2000s, the first 2 decades into this asset class? Because there was the energy transition and no one really understood what will happen and what does it really mean for utility business in future. And And the investment vehicles were set up in order to get access to talent, to new ideas, to help the companies to transform while the energy transitioning is and energy transition is happening. And that's also the biggest pro for companies you invest into, so venture capital or startups, but also for the strategic relationship, because there's a need and the dependency on each other. Then the large corporations need access to new ideas and new business opportunities, and the startups, if they get into such a big business environment, they get access to scalability, they get access to new markets, they get access to experts which can help to develop their products much better. And I think that's the natural fit, which also makes a lot of sense for both sides. And I would say, especially if you need or if you're dependent on innovation, venture capital is a great vehicle in order to get access to the right people and the right technologies in order to innovate your business. And that was, I would say, the reasons for the vetting in the late or before 2020 and then later as well.
Yeah.
That was the first question. What's the pros? The topic. Yeah. And if you go to the cons, I think the main con is independency, stringent investment decision, market-based analytics, due diligence, and so on and so forth. So if you really wanted to invest into the best companies and do you want that the best founders in the market accept you on the cap table, you need to play the terms of the market. And that's not impossible, but it's very, very difficult for strategic players to comply with. And for a great founder to be too early, to commit too early to someone or some direction in its journey, driving it for a company forward, involves a lot of risks, And you should think, or the best founders, they think twice if they wanted to do it. And I think that's the limitation. So even there's some good reasoning and strategic reasoning for both sides. If you aren't able to play the terms of the market, it's difficult for you to be a decent player on the table and be involved with the best opportunities in the market.
So if I, again, translating into plain language, if I can read you well, you're saying that substantially a CVC has a dominant strategic angle, and the dominant strategic angle might not allow them to invest into the best possible companies, because in a certain way you are pre-filtering based on your strategic view that most of the time is limiting the field of options. So probably you can be a bit less disruptive being a CVC, or you can be less horizon niche 3, you are more horizon 1. Again, I'm just playing with the words. And on the other hand, for the best startup on the market, the coolest one are the ones that substantially are choosing the who's who in the cap table. And technically speaking, if they have the luxury of choice, they try to reduce as much as possible to have a player that might limit the strategic field of options, unless the CVC play by the standard market rule, but still they have a certain way, have a certain say. Again, most CVC are actually investing in cool companies, but again, typically the cool companies put some conditions that make pretty clear that they don't have say on anything the company will do. In a certain way, you are playing with the CVC code, but substantially at the terms of the VC. So this probably is the situation that we are describing.
Yeah, absolutely. And just another aspect is governance. The governance of a large corporate is just different than the governance of a fund. You build a fund for 10 years, you invest 5 years, and then you sell for 5 years. Just simplifying everything, isn't it? talking about venture capital. Other asset classes, you have different timing, but this is not the horizon of an large corporate. They have a CEO for 5 years, or for 1-2 period, or for 2 periods, or 3 periods, and that also means strategy and direction changes more often in such a time frame of an investment cycle, so to say. It does not fit always. That's one point, and the other point is the corporates usually that's not they do venture capital, but it's not part of their business focus as such. No, venture capital is always a tool in order to get access to strategic value, but it's not done because I wanted to earn a lot of money with the capital, and it's not the purpose of the company to be a venture capital investor. And that per se brings also a lot of limitations and frictions into this venture capital business. No, I think everyone who is in the industry wants to do the best, but this obviously are systemic limitations or inefficiencies which makes it more difficult as a corporate investor to act as like an institutional investor. Let's say it like this. It's not valuing one or the other side. It's not judgmental. But there are limitations on both sides in the very end. But if you play in the financial market, you shouldn't limit yourself and try to be as you play the terms of the market.
Yeah, also because we talk about corporate venture capital, the reality is that 90% of them are making investment of balance. Mm-hmm. And making investment of balance means a few things. First of all, there is essentially a corporate process of approval. That might be perfectly designed, but is still there are some slowness, limitation, rigidities, and whatever. This is problem number one. Problem number two is that you are subject to, yes, there is a commitment to make investments over the years for a certain amount, but substantially you are subject to budget approval year over year. So technically speaking, the situation is going a bit south, the situation is not phenomenal, or there is a governance change. Yes, we committed to do 50 million per year for the next 5 years, but at year 3, new CEO, they're changing something, or year 3, financial troubles, we reduce the allocation. And substantially, you're driving a vehicle with an empty tank. Then there is also the people that are substantially manning the investment vehicle, the investment arm, or the investment team. Technically speaking, if you are playing as part of, you have a corporate jacket, it's difficult. You can have the typical terms of compensation and independence that a typical partner of a VC fund has. So substantially, you cannot have the carry. Yes, they give you a bonus that is similar, but it's capped. So technically speaking, you cannot play probably. You can play with corporate people that are doing the job. They might be very, very good because they have a good business angle, but probably don't have the investment pedigree and don't have the investment payoff. And so technically speaking, this is another further limitation. So you are playing in the VC market with a vehicle that is not designed for that. It's like being in a Formula 1 race car with a Formula 2 of a Gran Turismo, and then people are passing you left and right, and you are probably also a driver that is not exactly a Formula 1 driver because has a different pedigree, different skills. So this is probably some additional things that makes having an independent fund, probably at least you are playing with the rules of the others and not you are playing with your own rules. Yes, there are some benefits attached, but also there are some limitations that probably are limiting the competitive play that you might have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think there's also something good. Corporate venture capital teams, they can sometimes invest in things an institutional investor wouldn't touch because it's not clear enough, just for risk and portfolio construction matters or whatever. So I think especially in new topics, in energy, could be fusion or hydrogen or this kind of topics. Now here, I think corporate investors play a really important role because they they play strategic. No, they have a view about this technology, what could be the value long term, and that's also good signaling and a good opportunity. So I think there are also a lot of advantages having corporate venture vehicles in the market for the market, and then later for institutional investors, which then can invest later or in a different setting at a later point in time.
Yeah, this is the strategic play that sometimes might be potentially sort of forced in the market play, because you see your direction. Actually, his direction is very, very close to what you're doing, and so technically speaking, you are investment to be done. Let's fast forward to 2025. 2025, you closed the second fund. E.ON is still part of the LPs, but there are also other corporates on board. What's the difference between Future Energy Ventures Fund 1 and Future Energy Ventures Fund 2 from your perspective, substantially? So substantially having multiple LPs rather than being substantially, they put me aside, I'm independent, but technically speaking, I have just one LP or two. So what's the difference between the two situations?
So first of all, we now have 20 investors in the second fund and not just one.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point.
That's a matter, and we have a mixture of institutional and strategic investors, so to say, or corporate investors, which is quite good. So we get much more different. We get more diverse feedback and insights and understanding. So on the strategic side, we managed to get strategic investors from America, Asia, other countries in Europe where E.ON is not prominent into the fund. That's really good for us to be able to have companies to scale their technologies in the market with the strategic partners. And that's quite great. And we get much more also insights about the markets they're acting in. And we have a good conversation. So what we did with E.ON in the past, we do it now with 10 other strategic investors as well. And that provides much more insights and much more support in seeing and understanding opportunities, and then also driving opportunities forward. And then we have on the other side the institutional investors, which helps us also a little bit on the side becoming an institutional investor. And one thing is you raise a fund, but you're not per se then an institutional investor with your capabilities and skills you bring into this new venture, and for us that's quite helpful having their insights and their understanding and their hand in order to become a professional institutional player here. It's just the first journey, so to say, or the first step, and we really enjoy this having both sides and now on the second fund. And then on the other hand, I mean, we need to invest our own money, We are the entire management team together. We will invest 3 to 4 million into the fund, into this fund.
Okay.
And the future will be more. So it's your own money. So we put our money where our mouth is. I wouldn't say everything has changed since then, but it's just a different behavior, or at least a different thing. And just funnily speaking, my wife is always asking, "Do you really know what you're doing?" A bit, but it's a different setting. So
you have skin in the game. You have skin in the game.
Yeah, we have skin in the game. We put our mouth, and we own our investment. We are our own investment committee. There's no one who can influence, intervene, ask for reasoning why you do think this or that. We just do our discussions and then decide where to invest, and that's also how it should be. And that's also different. And then I think it's also an experience, and it's also a good experience. The relationship to E.ON is also changing. We are now an independent partner and not colleagues anymore, and that also changes our way of working together. And I think that's the main thing here to mention.
But you are a former colleague, that helps.
Yeah.
And which is the role of E.ON in terms of in the second fund? Which is the percentage? Is something the ballpark percentage?
Yeah, they are a little bit less than 20% of holding a little bit of 20% of the fund shares. and they are in the so-called investment advisory board, and main changes or main decisions where we need
so
governance.
Still one of the anchor investors, but is no longer the only investor. So it's interesting the way you mentioned, I'm a partner, no longer a colleague, but being a former colleague probably my way to get into the mothership from different parts. Now, because again, I'm talking with many corporates that are considering to launch a CVC fund, or they're considering to do startup investments. And again, for corporate of smaller size, there is also this month there was a good editorial on global corporate venturing saying, so Nicolas Savage, that is very pro CVC, say, any corporate that have 500 million in revenue plus, you should have a CVC fund. And I told him, listen, Paul, I'm a big fan of CVC, but there are some minimum size of operations, because again, playing with small funds in an ocean where there are ship tanker that are 1 billion size fund is difficult. Playing with a 30-40 million fund, so probably there are some minimum threshold that you need to consider in an industry when there is, particularly for the big trend we are discussing, like yours, you cannot go around with just a toy gun when the people are firing bazookas, because at the end you don't have a role. Or maybe you can make some early stage investment or something, but you have the ability to follow up if you pick up the right one. So that is a big topic. And so from a corporate perspective, the alternative is to become an LP in a VC fund. And so, but the typical question, okay, we want to be an LP, but we want to have a voice, we want to be heard, we want to have access to the deal flow. From the situation that now you are managing 15 to 20 corporate different partners, what's the difference of being the anchor investor of your own fund and being one of many?
Yeah. So from generally our target is that there shouldn't be a difference. No, I think there's a technical difference. The difference is not all people of the fund are working night and day for E.ON with regard to Fund 2, isn't it? And that's the difference. Yeah. And that was before. So there's a resource difference. But in general, we have, with every corporate investors, we have this kind of strategic plan or strategic agreement. So there's a side letter where we agreed from the very beginning how we work together, and we start each year on a clean sheet of paper, and then discuss what's up for this year. And usually we have this quarterly meetings where we discuss deal flow and all the things you have mentioned, trends in the market, and so on and so forth. We are doing that also with E.ON, obviously. And there's a quarterly interaction, and then on top of that, we are taking part of board meetings of our corporate investors, discussing with the board, but also with the innovation teams certain areas. We ask them always for advice when we see especially strategic relevant new developments and how they see it, and try to understand their interest in certain technologies. So I would say the topic is, for us, we are kind of, moving out from a corporate into the new life. You obviously need to be an entrepreneur, no? And we had to scale our, I would say, strategic cooperation process with E.ON to a process which can work with 10 partners or so. And that's what we are doing, and it works quite well, no? I guess for E.ON it's maybe less, and they see it a bit more. Or in the past we had more, now we have less, but all others, I think in total it works quite nicely.
Okay, no, it makes sense. Also your role has changes. Is one way just to talk to one partner. Now you're talking to 15 to 20. You need to keep balance. Again, it's good to have access to a broader set of companies, issues, industries, because actually there are different industries backing your new fund. But it's also very difficult to be able to manage such a large group of relationship, and so that is probably it's really changing the perspective. So you need also to understand what's best for the fund. It's not exactly what is best for any of these singular companies, but at the same time, they give you money. They are your LP. You need to listen to them. You give the best that you can. But this is the typical struggle the corporate want. Again, from corporate perspective, they're giving you the money and they want to have the full dedicated attention, total say, a strong voice. But again, it's simply not possible. If you want to have that, you need to have your own CVC fund. If you are accepting to be part of a larger consortium, you are one of the voices. And so that is what it happens. But this is something from a corporate perspective, I believe you can understand it pretty well. That it's difficult to be understood because corporates most of the time have the presumption that they want to be the one, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a topic which is maybe underestimated when you start the discussion. Setting up a new institutional manager also means change for people, no? The people which have been involved in the corporate structure, then moving out into the financial institutional manager world, so to say. And it's a huge transformation. And I guess every team underestimates the challenges which are attached to that, no? It's one thing to be part of a corporate with a great package and great recognition. And the other thing is to being an entrepreneur, where you have to put your own money and you calculate your P&L, make sure that you have some profits at the end of the year. It's just a different style of life, no? And you need to love it. And we have seen over this process, I think that was the biggest legacy process we had, and was the biggest bottleneck we had in our process to become an institutional manager, because it was difficult for everyone to find out, is it something for me or not? And that obviously, if the full team needs to be aligned to make something happening, and if you're moving out from one to the other situation, so to say, you really need to be aware about this people transformation issues you usually have.
How much is large the team of Future Energy Ventures? How many people?
So 15 people. We have 15 people. We are located in Palo Alto in the US. We have a small team here, Patrick and Anna. We have 2 people in Tel Aviv, Oat and Boaz, and the rest of the team is mostly in Berlin, but also spread over Europe. Jan Palasinski, you may know him. No, he lives in Rome. So yeah, 15 people. That's a good size.
And how many of them are former E.ON colleagues? How many of them are being recruited from outside?
Yeah, so I think the hardcore energy people, it's 5 or so, and the rest have been onboarded over time.
Okay, so it's a good mix also between former E.ON colleagues and new people. Just to closing our conversation that will be continuing to Torino at the Scaleup Summit shortly, and I'm really looking forward to that. Is if you have to give some tips to some of your CVC peers, some of your colleagues that are doing the same work in making investments into startup with a corporate stronger or lighter hat, let's put that way, what should be your top 2 tips, what you've learned?
On the corporate side, or
on the corporate side, yes, on the corporate side.
Yeah. The first point would be firm from the very beginning, especially in the beginning, and firm in terms of structure, investment decision, governments, etc. Because in the first few days or weeks or months, it's a bit about honeymoon time. No, everyone, the board likes to do it, and the team loves to do now venture capital, and I think it's a great opportunity to set up a structure which can work in its firm and has the right governance to be successful. And please reach out if you want to discuss in more detail. No, that would be I think the first point I have. And then on the other hand is you need you need really to staff a good team, which brings along a couple of different perspectives for investing. And I assume if corporate people usually understand the markets and the sector, and they have understanding about the innovation, but usually if we wanted to invest into startups, you need also to relate to founders, understand the side of their life. No? You need to bring along a couple of entrepreneurial and founding experience capabilities into a team. Otherwise, it will be difficult to relate and to make a good relationship up with the startups you wanted to invest into. That's really, really important, because you need, if you are not connected, people, it's the most important thing. You invest in the early stage sector, and that's quite important that you have that. And then the third thing is, in the very end, it's always about delivery, especially in corporate environments. So the first 2 or 3 years, they're always easy. Everyone is happy. You do a couple of workshops. Everyone is there. Everyone wants to talk about the Silicon Valley and this and that, and that's great. Yeah. New technology, and everyone is happy. And we're starting now, and everyone starts to hug and to be more personal and feels. I think emotionally the vibe is great. But in the very end, please keep in mind you need to perform after 3 or 4 years. Time is over. If you can't show success cases, you won't make it. So from the very, very first beginning, please think about, like an investor, you need to show results, and it's even more difficult as a corporate investor, because boards are not used to the J-curve we lived in. The J-curve mainly means the first 5 years you can do what you wanted to do, and then returns needs to come. No, that would be the story as a normal investor, but it does not work with corporate investors. So manage expectation and be aware that you need to show results rather earlier than later in order to sustain and grow your business further.
Yes, perfect. I think it's the super relevant point that you just raised. First of all, set up expectation and set up the process, because it's very important, even more if you are inside the corporate environment, because the excitement fades out pretty fast. And then trying to get non-corporate perspective and eyes inside the team, because if not, you're just talking corporate with people talking corporate. At the end, you sound like a foreigner or stranger to most of the startups, and you're not really able to cope with what is the reality outside of the corporate premises, because sometimes corporate environment is too much corporate, too much idiosyncratic, and people just talk their language. At the end, they don't understand any other language, and you have to be a translator with the startup world when the language is totally different. So Jan, thank you so much for this conversation. I personally enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you, Alberto. Have a nice day.